Hey folks, this is Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survivalist. In this case, we're taking a look at the Schrade Extreme Survival model SCHF9. There's another model in the same line, the Extreme Survival line, it's the SCHF3. Both of those are some of the nicest ones in the Extreme Survival series by Schrade. I have recommended them in the past. If you follow my website, the Modern Survivalist, those two I have recommended. I'm going to be leaving the link for these knives below, the link for Amazon. The price is about $43 give or take. There's sometimes variations, but it's in the $40 range, which is, it has to be as of right now one of the best deals in a knife of this type. The model F3 is a little bit more oriented for tactical use. This one is more of a utility, general purpose, survival knife. Let's see what we have in the box as it comes. Okay, first of all we have the warranty. Okay, limited lifetime warranty by Taylor Brands. Taylor Brands, it's the owner of Schrade. Schrade is a company with a long history which has gone through different changes. Right now the owner of Schrade is Taylor Brands. Then we have a manual, which unfortunately does not match the knife that we bought. It's kind of like a manual for a folding knife of some sort, almost like a buck knife. And even though I'm sure some of these indications and such apply to a fixed blade as well, it's definitely not the knife that we bought, which is, that's kind of disappointing. I would have liked to have at least a little manual with some of the specs of the knife we bought. That would have been much more reasonable. Then we have the actual knife. Comes with a cardboard sheath. Okay, we're going to be taking a look at it better in a second. And we have a sheath, which is actually a very, very decent sheath. Very nice sheath. It's maybe not the top of the line, most expensive sheath, but it's very, very decent. It's actually very good. You have a hard plastic insert. You have the ballistic nylon thing going on here. You have an exterior pouch. A leg loop here. I think this is a molly attachment. And then you have the belt loop with Velcro and the snap strap for the knife. Okay, so the knife goes in like that, nicely so. And then this is adjustable as well. You can adjust this strap with this Velcro on the inside, and it snaps very securely into place. This is a great package for 40 bucks. I mean, I don't think you have a better deal as of right now. There's some nice knives out there, but something like this as of right now, it has to be one of the best deals going on. Why is it? Well, simply because for 40 bucks, I mean, you would be hard pressed finding the sheath alone for 40 bucks. A sheath like this one will cost at least 40 bucks. If you look at this sheath, for example, this is a right, sure, this is a made in US, it's a Spec Ops brand sheath, but what, 40, 50 bucks for this sheath? Here you're basically, yeah, this is, nicer quality. If you get down to it, you have better stitching, you have better nylon and such, a thinner weaving and such. But for the money you're paying, you're basically getting not the sheath, you're basically getting the knife for free. And that's freaking awesome. That's amazing. Why is it that I have recommended this knife in the past in my website and such? For 40 bucks, it's a great knife. It's not the best knife there is, but it's very, very good. Why is it? What makes it a good survival knife? First of all, it's the blade design and geometry. The knife design in general is good. It's correct. It's smart. It just works very well. it's ironic that in this time and age, with so many knives, the market being so competitive in terms of knives, manufacturers trying to grab people's attention in different ways, you have so many weird things and knives that just don't work. You have so many, unusual details and artifacts in different blades with shapes that just don't work well. And in this case, you have a very organic knife. It has a nice enough grip, nothing weird going on, it's not uncomfortable, there's no weird constructions going on there, makes for a nice grip. The blade, again, very organic, functional, it does work. There's nothing weird, no weird angles going on anywhere, no notches or weird stuff like that. Okay, this is a simple, clever knife that will get the job done for what it's intended. What is it intended for? This is a survival knife. What do I mean by that? Do I mean just like bushcrafting, that sort of stuff? Yeah, but more than that. These days, you go on YouTube, you look up survival knives, and you see guys in the woods chopping a little bit of wood, preparing a fire. That's all nice. That's great. Is that what a survival knife is intended for? That would be a wilderness survival type of knife, sure, and that is correct. Those are wilderness survival type of applications for a knife. In my perspective, for realistically used survival knife, you need something more. You need a utility tool that is capable of digging, that is capable of prying, that is capable of smashing stuff, that if I have to get someone out of a car after a car accident, I can just cut through metal if I have to. If I have to pry a door open, I have to be able to do that. It has to double as a pry bar. If I'm in a wilderness scenario and I have to chop wood, I need a knife that will chop. This knife will chop. Okay, if it has to be used for defensive purposes, which is maybe more likely to be called upon than to make a fire, it has to be used as a weapon as well, for defending your life if needed. Will this knife slash, stab? Yes, it will. It will do all those things. In terms of chopping ability and the momentum you have, this isn't just, guys, about preparing, cutting wood and preparing fires. That is one of the possible uses, and it will do that, but it's about having enough momentum for smashing through. If I have to break bricks, if I have to smash through concrete blocks, will it hold? Will it last? Will this knife do that? And the answer is yes. Yes, it will. Because you have a 1/4 inch thick blade that goes all the way to the tip. You don't have any of that full flat ground thing going on here. You have a saber grind, which gives the knife that extra solid format that I'm looking for, and will do all those things. Is it the best knife for slashing through vegetation? Is it like a machete, like a large, like the junglas, which goes in a little bit into that territory? No, the junglas, because of the blade geometry, will cut better than the extreme survival. But this is the knife that I would definitely go for when looking for that survival knife, meaning most likely than anything else, an urban survival knife. If I'm caught in a building and I have to smash and cut my way through a dry wall, this knife will do it. This knife will not break when trying to do that. Other knives will not tolerate that kind of abuse, and that's just fine. Knives are cutting tools, and you are looking at knives worth hundreds of dollars that will not be able to do any of that, because they have been made specifically for cutting. They're made by very good manufacturers. The steels used are fantastic and all, but some of those are knives made specifically for cutting, and anything else, anything involving prying or smashing, it will not tolerate it. It will not take it. And sometimes it's not even about the price. Sometimes a 20-15 buck knife like this kukri machete by Cold Steel will do things that a Chris Reeve knife worth thousands of bucks will not do. sorry, not thousands, hundreds of bucks, but the price difference is not always an indication of the capability of each knife. In this case, we have 1/4 inch thickness, we have full tank construction, which is by all accounts the most solid type of construction we could look for. We have a blade that is 6.4 inches long. Let's just verify that just in case. 6 point with our Leatherman here. Yeah, it's more like, yeah, that would be correct. 6.4, 6.5 inches long. 6 inches is the minimum I would go for a real survival knife. With the right geometry and weight distribution, a 6-inch blade may be, it's not always the case, but a 6-inch blade may have enough weight in the tip so as to have enough momentum for smashing, cutting, and chopping. In this case, we have that. It's actually a very good chopper. In spite of not being on, you know, very long blade, it still chops very well because of that, because of this recurved curve that we have, this recurved edge. You have quite a bit of mass here close to the tip, gives you good momentum. The weight distribution almost here in the choil, you know, that's a nice weight, so you get a good amount of momentum for slashing, stabbing. You know, again, the defensive application is there. This knife will do that. You have the finger guard here that allows for good blade retention, curve here as well, so that in both directions you have a good hold on the blade. The steel used in this case, it's 1095 high carbon steel. 1095 is the kind of steel that you will find in more expensive knives such as SC. The Junglas is made of 1095 steel. It's considered to be a very good steel for this kind of use. It's actually, you know, well regarded. 1095, this has to be one of the cheapest 1095 steel knives floating around. 1095 heat treated correctly will take a beating and take it well. That's the case with SC knives. Is that the case with Schrade as well? It seems so. This brand is not SC. It's not Bussy. It's not a $100 knife. All right. And the brand, you know, they clearly got it wrong with the manual. How much trust can you put on the heat treatment? The only way of seeing that is checking and going by results. It's not Schrade. It's clearly not the fancy brand that will reassure you that they get things done well all the time. But I would be happy enough, based on what people say, on my own experience, to somewhat trust that the knife is correctly heat treated. Could you get a lemon? That could be the case. Based on what I've read, especially in Amazon, Amazon is a good place, especially when you have a good amount of reviews, so as to see how things have been working for other people. Based on what I've been reading, there's really not a clear problem with heat treatment. I haven't seen any catastrophic failures. That means the knife breaking and snapping. Rather the opposite. It's a knife that by all accounts has held pretty well in spite of a more than understandable amount of abuse put into the blade. That has to do a lot with the construction and the blade geometry. Guys, the steel is important. The design is more important always. Even with more mediocre steel, you can make a fantastic survival knife just putting enough metal where you need it. Now you start doing stupid things like putting notches in silly places and weakening the blade, you are going to be ruining that. Okay? Not the case here. Again, the spine almost there. It reminds me a little bit of the penetrator tip of Bussy knives. This will not break. I mean, this is a tip which I could put through a wall, through a dry wall, or stab a steel drum and pry, and I'm not going to be breaking it. Okay, unless the heat treatment has been awfully done. Unless the heat treatment has been awfully done, it's not going to be snapping that way. It's going to be requiring a dedicated effort into destroying the knife. Based on even the negative reviews that I've seen in Amazon, one of the complaints that I've seen was some people saying that it didn't hold on the edge as well as other 1095s. Again, that is most likely related to the heat treatment. Particular knives that haven't had the right heat treatment, I'm guessing, in here, this is a supposition of mine, I'm guessing that Schrade goes for a slightly softer heat treatment, and understanding if they do things correctly as I think they do, they go for a slightly softer heat treatment in favor of more abuse resistant in terms of, you know, giving a little bit of hardness for durability and abuse resistance, and I'm perfectly happy with that. I much rather have a knife that is not 60 Rockwell hard but will take a beating, rather than have a knife that is just too damn hard and snaps on me when I abuse it a little bit beyond what the knife has been designed for. What have I done with this knife? I've chopped the heck out of it, and I did that so as to see if there was anything, you know, any clear problem with the heat treatment. Based on what I did with the knife, that's not been the case. I mean, I've chopped with a knife, I've, you know, hit the knife quite a bit, and it hasn't failed catastrophically in any of those ways. Guys, there's even, you know, knives worth hundreds of bucks that snap that way because they are just too hard and too brittle. So as to gain the hardness that they have, they become too brittle and they just snap. That's not the case here, at least not based on my tests. I will continue trying out different things and seeing how the knife holds. So far so good. I mean, it's a knife that it took an edge nicely. It cuts nicely enough. No complaints there. It's not the sharpest knife in the planet, but you can put a very decent edge in it. You know, some places where it could still be improved a little bit more, but overall, I mean, we're talking about a survival knife that shaves with little effort. It could be improved a little bit more, but it's definitely a knife with potential, and that's why I have recommended it. Is it perfect out of the box? No. And here's where we'll talk some criticisms about the knife. All right, it's a knife that does the important things well. First of all, we have the good blade design, we have a very tough construction by all means, and the good steel as well. Now, you don't have the attention to detail that you will find in much more expensive knives. What I mean by this is that at the end of the day, this is a slab of steel, that has been cut, and you have grip panels attached to it, right? Slab of steel with panels attached to it. $40 knife, $400 knife. What's the difference? At the end of the day, is it not the same thing? Well, no. It basically is down. If you look at down to the components, you will find differences. You will find the Bussy knife has infi steel with it, which is more expensive. The attention to detail will be different as well. Are you paying maybe too much for the Bussy? That's up to each one to decide. But you will see that the attention to detail that you have in this kind of knife, you won't have it here. You definitely don't have it here in the Schrade Extreme Survival. What I mean by that is you find all these things going on here where the detail, the attention to detail simply is not there. You see these Creighton type rubberized panels on the grip. It's not always that they fit perfectly. Actually, it fits kind of poorly in several places. You see that? Excess of rubber there as well. Okay, that's what happens in a $40 knife. The knife they've used for the video, the promotional video found in Amazon, does not have these flaws, right? But and maybe you are lucky and you don't get a knife with these little problems of fitting, or here as well. But it's something that I'm willing to live with based on what I'm paying for and what I'm getting. All right. And besides, it's kind of an easy fix, to be honest. It's something that you can just cut it with a sharp knife. You cut the excess here. You know, you don't want these things just rubbing you on your hand in here as well, especially if you're going to be using this as a hammer. You don't want that excess there. One more thing, you have this pattern probably intended for you know, for greater retention, but the pattern with these circles, it's very abrupt, the change that you have here, and it feels awkward in your hand. You feel a little bit of a uncomfortable edge when holding it. This is something that with a Dremel tool you may be able to work down a little bit and remove it. Again, things that you can do with a little bit of work of your own. The knife did not come razor sharp out of the box, not by any means. Actually, it had a few issues with the edge. It really would not cut paper out of the box. Okay, now it does cut paper out of the box nicely. Not out of the box. With my own sharpening, it does cut paper, but it did not do this right out of the box. Some people apparently had better luck than others. In general, I'm not thinking that you're getting a razor sharp great edge with a $40 knife. I'm not expecting it either. I mean, to be honest, this is more of a thing like the cold steel machetes. You know, some of these came with just awful edges. I mean, just a barbed wire edge that would not cut butter. And this is something that you buy for 15, 20 bucks. You put a little bit of work of your own and you end up with a very, very nice big blade. In this case, it's something similar going on. You don't have a fantastic quality control or attention to detail, but in general you get a lot of knife for your money. Okay folks, the coating, it's something referred to as PTFE coating. It does work nicely. It has actually retained quite well in spite of the chopping that I did with it and cutting, slashing through some carpet to see how it does. By the way, it did excellently well. Slashing, it slashes very well, mostly thanks to this belly and the recurve edge. Slashes very nicely. The tip, even though it's not as good as in the F3, which is more of the tactical defensive use application, it does work very well. And you kind of gave a little bit of penetration by not being as narrow, but at the same time, the trade-off is that you have an indestructible tip that will, you know, do well against anything you put it against. So the trade-off is very satisfactory. I'm very happy with this blade shape. I think it's actually fantastic. Maybe a little bit less of a recurve, more subtle. That's maybe something I could have done. Probably as I keep sharpening and such, it's something that will ease on its own. By the way, yes, I have sharpened it, and yeah, what you would expect with Tech 95. It's actually not soft in my opinion, in spite of what I've read some other people say. It's not a soft heat treatment, at least based on what I've seen and at least in this particular knife. That doesn't mean that your particular knife has somewhat of a softer heat treatment, which is what I read some people mention. 1095, it's a high carbon steel, it will rust. Is that the end of the world? It certainly is not. Some people like to be very dramatic about that stuff. You know, it's nothing to go nuts about. Rust in these kind of knives is more than understandable, and it's not an issue. The finish is quite nice, especially because it's not hasn't got too much friction. It just slides nicely. It would be a finish very easy to clean if you're using the knife for, which is again a possibility, maybe for cooking, for preparing food. It's a knife that cleans very nicely as well. When I was chopping, I had a little bit of sap, tree sap, and you know, very easily cleans off nicely. So guys, those are the clear advantages and good points of the knife. A medium size, not too big, not too small knife, 15.9 ounces for those guys, for those of you that are interested. Again, 1/4 inch thickness, 1095. lots of great things going on. Maybe for some of you guys more dedicated, you could remove these TPE handles and make some of your own with micarta or some special wood. You would have a fantastic knife for a lifetime. I mean, you have chunk of steel going for that sharp pry bar mentality that I think is adequate for a realistic modern survival knife. Folks, that's all for now. Remember to subscribe and like the video if you enjoy it. Share it with others. Remember, the link is there below for you guys interested in buying it in Amazon. And that's it, guys. Take care. Have a great day. See you in our next video.